Okay, here we are with the last chapter, chapter 5, breaking the monolith apart. Now we're going to do the catalog as I hinted at quite overtly in the last video, and the catalog is based on Spring Boot. And we're going to suggest some other types of plugins to go along with it in order that you can benefit from Spring Boot on Kubernetes, particularly OpenShift as well. So here's what we need to do. We need to take our source tree here, close down the inventory, open the catalog. I'm just going to expand the source so I can see the classes. There we go. There's some client uh, classes, some model classes, and resources in terms of application default properties and schema, that sort of stuff. That's already taken care of for us. So we move on to the exercises here. We're encouraged to look at the Maven project structure and particularly the POM file. Instead of using the classic bill of materials, we're recommending pieces of the Snowdrop project here. And that is a project, as I said, that provides scaffolding to remove a whole bunch of the coding you'd have to do, particularly, boilerplate type of coding within Spring Boot for Kubernetes. So we're going to take a look at the POM file here and actually add some of these capabilities to it. And there's some hints here in terms of where we should put this stuff, so that we don't goof it up. So here's where we put our Tomcat dependency. Next is the JDBC. The Java Persistence API. And then there's some libraries from Netflix and others, which, for example, Actuator Fang and Hystrix does a great job of making sure that you, with connections that can be down and are not guaranteed to always be up, not to be too brittle with them. And we'll put in the configuration file that we'd like to have access to those. Okay. Netflix ribbon. Let me make sure that. There we go. Okay. Now, uh, these things mentions that the red dependencies in terms of the code mapping are gone because we've made those definitions. I'll try a build here. That worked. I'm working on trying not to sound surprised when I say that. So we'll go to the cool store service and the product repository. We need to put a new file in here, a new Java class called product repository in the service directory. And within there, we want to add this code. This code defines the product repository, but so that we understand what's happening, we're going to actually put in the methods here for wiring up to the database and the row mapper, and to make sure that we create methods to return the catalog items. So here's what we want to do. We want to get the auto wire connect thing going. And this at AutoWire just saves us a whole bunch of typing. Then here's our serialization. Here's our method for getting all the inventory, or all the catalog entries, I should say. And then the method for bringing back a particular item number. This is really cool. There's a JDBC template which can actually make, there's a method for object which will do the SQL query and bring that back in the data format that Java understands. So we still need to tell Spring how to connect to the database, and we'll use the H2 database like we did before for testing here at the command line. And then we'll change it out to JDBC for PostgreSQL for the production instances. So this will go into application default properties. It explains that the data, Spring data format will look at that schema.sql and run that and initialize the database. So it'll load up that those SQL statements and populate the database. Now we're going to expose the database content for the REST endpoints. And what we need to do here is create a new class with this code called catalog service. And you can see there's two new codes up there and here as well. And we'll have to fill in those in a little later. Right now we're going to create the endpoints for the REST service. So catalog endpoint, we'll have this code. Okay, it's suggesting we start the application. By golly, that worked. Now we can curl in a different terminal. Okay, we got the catalog. Note there's 0 inventory items. We haven't wired that up yet to call the inventory. Now we're gonna get the inventory data. Let me Control C out of that because it says to do so. There we go. So get inventory database data. We got to do some client-side integration. So what we have to do is extend the UI to call the service products and service products ID to get the inventory status. And there's a microservices gateway involved and a service to service call. So we'll implement the inventory client here. Inventory client.java, cool store client. And then we'll open the application default properties. To get the list of servers for the inventory. And the Hystrix will actually have a timeout value, at which time if it doesn't get it, it'll return and say, keep on running, but I don't have that value. It's undefined. So we'll specify that just a little bit later. And now we're going to do that auto wire for the inventory client. That is in the catalog service. Right up here. Then the product. So we're going to need to define put some flesh into these classes for product and a list of products. So here we go. This is going to go into the product calling inventory service. Right there. Okay. And then there's this statement that we want to uncomment right at the top. Control / will do that for us. And then in the read all method, we will add the following. There we go. And now we'll create that fallback so that here's what happens if we don't get the value we're looking for, and what it'll do is come back with a -1. So that's an inventory client. There's the fallback. And I misnamed this. So obviously public interface inventory client. So that API or that class has to be renamed to inventory client. Hey, that got rid of some of the red dots too. Now we have to tell Fane here that we have a fallback. We could change that method right here. Okay. I should say that's an annotation on a method. Fallbacks, we're going to be able to take care of slow running services as well. So we'll open application default properties, and we'll set that timeout we saw before. We're going to set it for 20,000 milliseconds. And then let's test our build. Okay. Opening another terminal so we can try a little bit of curling. And there it is. There's our calls catalog, complete with inventory being brought back. And now we want to use a proper database on the back end, so let's create one down to the final stretch here. We're going to go to the topology, go to catalog, and this is going to be just like we did before. I need to check to make sure I got the right one. I want to go PostgreSQL ephemeral. Catalog database, catalog, password, catalog, create. There it is. And now we'll do a little configuration so that our application is ready to go into OpenShift. So we are going to create an application OpenShift properties. Put this code in there. on these settings. And then we're going to do a repackage here. Make sure nothing's running. Okay, we're going to stop this. Okay. Now we're going to do a binary build. And the next step will be to execute that build. I actually did kind of a build configuration just before. And we'll follow that. We took the snapshot jar in from standard in. We're setting user permissions on it. Storing signatures, and we're getting ready to push the image here. Now we're pushing the image up into the registry, the OpenShift registry, and there it is. Getting a successful push. We don't have anything deployed yet. Now we're going to do a deployment here with this command. And what this does is it creates the new application of a catalog Spring Boot as a deployment config, and with some a profile appended. And now here it comes. It's being brought into OpenShift. The build is complete. Now we're deploying. We can see what's going on here. And Spring is starting up with all the goodies that we've enabled. And then some. Now there's no endpoint to click on because we didn't define one. But our next step will be to expose an endpoint. We're also going to set up a readiness probe and set the delays, period seconds, and failure threshold. Okay, I'm going to try that again. I think it needed a little bit more time. Oh, it's already set up. So I should see, yep, here it is. Click on this. And there's our catalog with the tie-in to the inventory. If we had zeros before, we don't now. And now we got the catalog service up and going. And it's calling the microservice inventory. So here's where we're at. Now, to really finish this up, we need to make a modification to the deployment of the monolith. So it is calling these microservices. so that we can evolve these microservices over time without changing the monolith. So the first thing we'll do is in the application properties of the inventory project. We have to be careful because we've been working in the catalog project. So close catalog, open inventory, application properties, and tell it we're allowed to do this cross connection. And we're going to redeploy the inventory project here. You'll see we'll change the project to users 34 inventory and then do a build here. Once the build is done, the inventory pod will automatically redeploy. I can see that if I go up to inventory. Yeah, so the artifact was updated. Now the build needs to be done to put that into a container image, and then it'll deploy automatically. We could watch that, but we're in the home stretch here. Let's go ahead and open the catalog endpoint in cool store service of catalog. And we've got to put this cross origin annotation into that. And let's see where that is. So back to catalog. Okay, you can see we have duplicates here. All we really wanted to do was add that one, but they wanted us to make sure we knew where it went. All right. And then we rebuild and redeploy the catalog service. And I'll change the map here to catalog service. And I saw the little icon that said the build is running. Right here, this build is running the shift. And this will be in good shape shortly. And then in the monolith, in the front end code, we need to put the space URL in just above the factory get products equals function line. So that's catalog JavaScript. So that's in the monolith. So I close catalog, open monolith. Let me look at those instructions one more time. Web app services. There we are. And now we'll rebuild and redeploy the monolith. Let's see if build is happening right there. Push has happened. Now we're creating a new container. service pod. I get rid of these. We'll have a new one. So we're all up and going here. Well, not quite. Now we are. Just about. Okay. Now that's the catalog from that we are in the cool store dev, and this is the monolith. And when we click the URL for the monolith, we do get the catalog as we had it before. And the base URL is changed, so it's going to the catalog service, and we have the inventory. So effectively, we have curtailed the functionality of that we're using out of the monolith and moved some of it to microservices, and it matches up to the picture. So with that, we are finished with the workshop. Great job sticking it out, and thank you very much. We hope you got something out of it, and let us know if we can help.